Good evening and welcome to the Press Box. I'm Vanessa Johnson, and for the next 30 minutes, I'll be your host. With me are Ty Reynolds and Jeff Richardson sitting in for Jay Marks. How you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Just fine. Glad to be here.
That's great. Okay, let's start off talking about the Atlanta Knights. They're playing well this year.
Well, they have gotten off to a good start, and we talked about this team last week, Jeff, and we thought that with the personnel, players coming and going, that it was going to be a little while for this team to get together, get used to playing with one another, and get some offense generated. Well, I was wrong. It took them no time to get any offense generated. They have the two top scorers in the league right now, and this team looks like they can really compete this year again.
Ty, you're right. I was worried coming into the year that they had lost their captain, Jock Collender. They had lost Keith Osborne, the top scorer from last year. Looked like they might have problems scoring goals, but they have not. They signed a guy named Jeff Medill, who was named IHL Player of the Week last week. He's leading the league in scoring. Brent Gretzky looks like he's developed into a player this year, although he's Mr. Yo-Yo. He's going to be up with Tampa Bay and back. There's no telling when he's going to be around, but of course, the captain, Chris LaPuma, the defenseman, is a big-time player. Unfortunately, they don't have Manon Rhéaume in Atlanta this year. She's up in Knoxville playing a double-A hockey, I think. So.
Well, let's hope for the best for her.
Okay.
Jeff, another person who has really been outstanding is Stan Druilla, who's second in the league in scoring. So I think that we can just really look for a lot of offensive output from this team this year.
Well, you guys sound pretty confident about them repeating a good year.
Well, we're confident they've got a good team. Unfortunately, Ty and Vanessa, I think they've been placed in the toughest division in the league.
No doubt about it.
Right.
Milwaukee and Kansas City both have one loss also. It's going to be a dogfight to win that division. I'm not sure how the playoffs are set up. I don't think all three teams will make it, though.
Well, if you have a format similar to the NHL, maybe they will get in. But no, if you have a situation where only two teams out of a three-team league can get in, then you're going to see a very good team not make the playoffs.
What about their offense? How do you think that's going to have an effect on it?
Well, they're leading the league in goals as we talk tonight. They are leading the league in goals, which is a good sign. Like we said before, we were afraid they wouldn't have any offense this year because they lost their two top scorers. They appear to have not missed a beat, though.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's move on to college football.
Well, before we move on, let's mention that they do have two games this weekend against San Diego at home at the Omni, and they're leading the league in attendance, by the way.
Yeah, that's great hearing that.
So everybody in the studio audience or the viewing audience, jump out to the Omni and see some hockey. It's a great spectator sport.
It's Friday and Saturday, right? Okay. Okay, what about the giant outdoor party at Georgia and Florida in Jacksonville?
Must be talking about
weekend?
Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think so. It's that time of year, isn't it?
That's right.
Jeff, what do you think? I think we're going to see a whole lot of points scored in this game. What do you think?
I'd have to agree with you. Both teams are going to struggle a little bit on defense, but both of them can really rack the points up. Eric Zier is on fire right here. He's the hottest quarterback in the country. He's thrown for 1,400 yards the last 3 games. The Gators' secondaries have been a little bit suspect. They've moved some players this week, and maybe I don't know if the evil genius down in Gainesville is panicking a little bit, but he's moved his number 2 tailback to linebacker this week.
Well, there's no secret that both teams have been struggling very much defensively. Florida, I think, has a type of defense where they just have put a lot of quickness up on their line and in their linebackers and stuff everyone up to the line of scrimmage. And they only play 3 true defensive backs. And then they take their chances. They push them right up on the line against you. And the team that found out this weakness was Tennessee, and Tennessee hit them for 3 long touchdown passes. And the secret's out, and a lot of teams have had success against Florida with long, big pass plays.
Okay. We have a phone call. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I hear you guys talking about a little bit about the Florida-Georgia game. I'd like to say you are right. Eric Zier is probably the hottest quarterback in the country. But frankly, Kentucky scored 28 points against Georgia. And as you know, Florida's got the number 3 ranked offense in the country, and there's no way Georgia's going to stop Eric Redd, who is averaging 130 yards per game on the ground. That's only complements their great passing attack.
Well, that's a pretty good point. I would have more confidence in Georgia stopping the running game. We're more susceptible to the pass. Florida's quarterback is new this year, and I think he's thrown about 17 interceptions. So I think if he throws us a couple of balls and we get a break or 2, then Georgia's going to be right in the ball game.
Warfel's only thrown 8 interceptions. He threw 3 in the first game and 2 in that loss to Auburn. And in that game to Auburn I went to, they gave up up 21 points on offense. I mean, they had the 2 long interception returns. They fumbled inside their 20. So the Gators defense, the game before, they shut out LSU. And you are right, they are moving some players around. They moved one of their young, talented freshman wide receivers to a corner position, and they moved Aubrey Hill, a receiver, to a free safety. So you are right. Their defense is vulnerable, but I think the Gators' offense will be just too much for the Dogs.
I
think that's what
agree.
it's going to come down to.
I agree with that, and I personally think it's going to be a score like 45-31 here. I think Florida is going to run the ball, like you said. That's one advantage they have. I don't think Georgia can run the football that well. I think that's an advantage Florida has, and also Steve Spurrier, I think, is going to have to do that because his defense is struggling. I think he can take over some of the tempo of the game by using his running game, and if Kentucky can run that well on Georgia in between the tackles like they did with Mo Williams, I think they can do the same thing with Eric Brett.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Mo Williams is getting to see him on Saturday. He is a fantastic player. Probably could be the best player, the best freshman in the SEC, and big game. And I'll tell you what, that game against Georgia, Florida-Georgia game, it's a big game for Goff because, as you know, that game is probably the biggest game in the history of Georgia football, the Florida-Georgia rivalry. And if Goff loses for the 4th straight year, plus coming up maybe a 500 a year, you got to wonder if the Georgia program might move in a different direction.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think he's clairvoyant, Jeff. We were about to go right into that.
He must have been watching this show before, I think. He's right. This is a big pivotal game for Ray Goff. If he loses 4 straight to Florida, and of course we got Auburn and Tech after that, you figure we may split that pair, so we're looking at a 500 season. A lot of alumni are upset about that. He may be out of here.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, you just can't have this program and keep losing to Florida and Tennessee every year. And, I mean, this guy earns, with all the perks and salary and TV revenue from his show, he gets about $500,000 a year, and no one should get that type of money and coach a team like Georgia and lose to Florida and Tennessee every year. You just can't do that. You have to compete with Alabama.
Fellas, I'd say just maybe one more thing. Alabama, Ole Miss, I got to see the game on Saturday. I really think, there's no doubt Alabama's defense is phenomenal. They produced like 5 players in the top 3 rounds in the NFL draft last year, and they have, face it, Antonio Langham is the best cornerback in the country. But their offense, if you take David Palmer out of their offense, they lose the last 2 games. And I'll tell you what, eventually, and this is probably the year, they might, let's say if they do get by the Tennessee or the Florida team in the SEC championship game, they're going to play a big impact team like FSU. And FSU, face it, they're dominant on both sides of the balls. Great linebackers, they're fast, and face it, Charlie Ward and that offense is the most balanced offense and the best offense in the country. Their second team are a bunch of freshman All-American players, and Alabama, if they are in line for the Big Time Bowl this year, they could be in deep trouble.
Yep, I agree with that. Thanks for the
Make
phone
a good
call.
point. Thanks
We need
for
to
the
get this
call.
guy on the show, don't we?
Yeah.
Another thing that is really hurting Alabama right now is that this team is beat up and injured badly. Not only is Barker out, but their starting fullback is out. The starting tight end is hurt, Tony Johnson, the highly recruited kid out of Mississippi. Stevenson is out, starting guard, or rather tackle. Clay is questionable for the upcoming game, a starting guard. And then that's just the offense. Then they have troubles on defense. They got 2 defensive linemen out, Nunley and Brown. This team has just got a lot of injuries, and they're banged up right now.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Vanessa, I want to interrupt, but they're probably going to be able to coast into the Auburn game from here, though, aren't they?
They would.
Okay, so those injuries will have time to heal. I think it's obvious they're not as strong as they were last year. They should have lost the Tennessee game. They basically won that by the hair on their you-know-what, or they tied it.
With that comment in mind, what do you think their chances are for a back-to-back championship?
I don't think they're very good this year. I think Florida State is a team to beat. They got over their major hurdle in Miami, and once they get past Notre Dame, which I think they will, they're going to coast into a bowl game and blow somebody out.
I think the key for Alabama is getting those people healthy. Right now they have 3 upcoming home games. Southern Miss, a bad club. LSU, a bad club. Mississippi State, a bad club. And not only that for Mississippi State, it's going to be payback time for them because they gave them a hard time in Starkville last year. Then they get an off week. Then they go down on the plane to Auburn and play down there. Hopefully they'll have those guys back.
Okay. What about Georgia Tech? Is Georgia Tech starting to gain a little momentum?
I That's hard to say. I really don't know how good North Carolina State is, although I think they'll go to a bowl game this year. And North Carolina State had 4 turnovers, and when you give a team like Tech the ball that many times where they have already established a running game, they're going to be successful and keep the ball away from you. And one thing I would like to see them do is keep handing the ball to William Bell. I think he's just about their best player and their best athlete. They ought to use him.
What do you think they're going to do this weekend?
I think they'll beat Duke. I don't think there's any question about it. Duke is them and Maryland are the worst teams in the conference, and Georgia Tech should definitely win that game.
Because they have Derek Stegall out with a hamstring injury.
I don't think that's going to make any difference. If Bill Lewis has his own way, he's going to just run the ball down their throat and just keep it away from them.
I think historically, though, Tech has trouble playing at Duke, do they not?
Once in a while, some teams have some difficulty going up there, but this Duke team, I just think is a bad team.
Well, just to address the original question, I think we asked if Tech was gaining any momentum, and I definitely do not think they are gaining any momentum. This is not a very good football team this year.
Well, they're struggling, and they're young. Personally, I look at this team winning 4 games this year. I thought they could win 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. It's been a little disappointing, but losing people like Jason McGill and Yancey Sims, I think really hurt this team.
Well, it's unfortunate they lost those players, but then again, they have to join the crowd. I think we've lost a few in Athens too.
Yeah.
So, Donnie Davis has been a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, you may as well come out and say it. He hasn't performed on the level that Eric Zier and Heath Schuler did when they all came out of high school, ranked 1, 2, 3, just throw them in a hat and figure out which one's better. But Donnie's sort of let Tech down. He's obviously still young. He can come back next year and have a big year. But with Stegall hurt, I don't think they have a quarterback that can maybe even win 2 more games this year.
Maybe not.
I disagree with you guys. I believe, well, they still have 4 games. They have Duke, they have Baylor, and they have Georgia, and they have another game right before that.
Another ACC
don't they have Wake Forest?
Wake
Forest, and that's up there at Winston-Salem.
Those 4 games, it's possible that they can surprise us and win, and they'll still go to the bowl.
Baylor, that's a team I just don't understand. Here it is. They can go out there and play pretty well sometimes. They played well against Texas A&M, and then they turn right around and get clobbered by Texas Christian at home. So I don't know what to expect out of them.
I don't think Baylor's going to do anything.
Yeah, that's what I thought last year.
Well, they've got that weird option, and they got a great little option quarterback, J.J. Joe, and I think they'll come over and give Tech a few problems, although that's 3 weeks down the road.
Yeah, that's down the road.
That's true. Okay, like I said, they can surprise you guys. What about Auburn? They've been a surprise this year, too.
There's been several surprising programs this year. The most pleasant surprise has been Auburn. I guess I have to put quotes on pleasant because they had to cheat to get there. But this team is undefeated. And in one of the polls, they're number 5 in the country. They had a big win over Florida at home, like the caller previously said. But Auburn still has a couple of big games left, and those games are winnable. They play at Georgia. They always play well at Georgia, and then they have a home game with Alabama. It's possible that team could go undefeated, but I don't think it's going to happen. But a 9-2, 10-1 season, it's very likely for them.
I think Auburn is a surprising team in that they're undefeated, but like you mentioned, if you got the best team money can buy, you ought to be pretty damn good.
Right.
Okay, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Troy and Buckhead. Listen, you're talking about college football, and I'd like to know when you guys think we're going to have a playoff system, because I'm looking at schedules right here, and I'm not sold that Florida State is going to go unbeaten. They've got Notre Dame left, and then they always have to go to the Swamp in Florida. That's going to be tough. If they lose one of those games, that puts Miami back in it. You've got Notre Dame unbeaten, who still has a game with Boston College and Florida State, and then there's Nebraska out west. If they get by Colorado this week, they could go unbeaten. When are we going to get a playoff system to outright determine who the best team in the nation is?
I think when you get the presidents to finally get together and vote on that. I mean, I think you have a lot of athletic directors and head coaches that would possibly want to do that. I think that the ones that are holding the cards here are the presidents, plain and simple. And it's also a big issue with money. And a lot of these teams make a lot of money from these bowl games, and that's something I don't think they want to give up on. But personally, in my opinion, Jeff, I think if they did go to a playoff, maybe coming up with some type of bowl regime, and then maybe getting 8 teams out from that, or even 4, I don't think you're asking that much more from your kids. I think you'll bring a lot more money into the system.
Well, I think the main complaint the presidents have is not wanting to play extra ball games at the Division I level because they think it takes away from classes and academics, and that's a bunch of bunk. I mean, Division II and below has playoffs every year. They play 15 to 16 ball games, and those kids don't complain about it. I think you're looking at probably $120 million you could bring in from a playoff system.
I really feel it's a tragedy. You look at 2 years ago with Tech in Colorado, we still haven't resolved who the best team in the nation was that year. And again, let's don't write this season over because I'm not sold that Florida State can go up there, especially if the weather's bad, and take Lou Holtz and the Irish, with the Irish having a week to prepare for that game. So let's don't write this season off yet, and I think it's just a tragedy.
I agree.
You're right.
All right. Thanks for the phone call.
Okay. You were mentioning programs that's been a surprise this year. What about some of the disappointments?
Well, some of the disappointments, when you start out west, I think Stanford's a disappointment. When you go up north, I think Syracuse has been a disappointment. And, of course, Michigan. I think that's been a disaster up there. They lost to Illinois at home, and Illinois was like 2-4 at the time coming into Ann Arbor. And I think Georgia's been a disappointment. That was a preseason top 15 team. I think they have a lot of talent there. And I just don't think the coaches got the most out of their players.
I'd have to agree with you. In my opinion, Georgia's a bigger disappointment because I'm a Georgia fan, but probably from a national viewpoint, Michigan has to be the biggest disappointment this year.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for calling. We have a caller. Excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Let's get back to some of those
Never
other
mind.
surprises, Jeff. I think a lot of surprises have been in the middle of the country. I think Ohio State's been a pleasant surprise. I think Wisconsin's been a nice surprise, and Kansas State. Kansas State, I think, will go to a bowl this year. And Wisconsin, I think, will go to a bowl game as well. And not only that, they may have an effect on the national outlook as well because Ohio State, after they play this game with Penn State, after an emotional game, they're going to have to travel over there to Camp Randall Stadium where Wisconsin dumped them last year. And who knows, after an emotional game, they may get beat over there again.
I agree with you. Wisconsin's got one of the finest young coaches in the country, and he's got that program up. Did they lose this week or not?
They lost. They had
First loss of the season.
tough loss to Minnesota.
I think they're still in the Big Ten picture, though.
I think so, but then the end of the schedule for Wisconsin, you have games with Ohio State and you have Michigan. And also, they took one of their home games and they moved it to Tokyo. And I know they would love to have that back in Madison now because that's against Michigan State, and that's going to be a tough game.
Okay. We have a caller. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm from Michigan, and I just can't understand it. I was wondering if you guys, what do you see that's going wrong? I mean, Mona still has the big kids and everything, and he has Wheatley and Powers both, but they just can't get their act together. And like you say, it's terrible for me being from Michigan, but I mean, they're a annual national school, and they just have gone south.
Well, Ty, Georgia's a disappointment too, and we pointed the finger at coaching there, and I think you'd probably have to do the same thing at Michigan. They have too many good, talented kids to be doing what they're doing.
I think Tyrone Wheatley is one of the best running
Michigan's still one
backs.
of those 3 yards in the cloud of dust schools, and I mean that's basics. That's not complicated. I just don't. I can't see them losing to Illinois. That really it shocked me. Put me for a loop.
Well, maybe a situation. The modern college football game has moved more towards a passing game, and Michigan may not have caught up to everybody yet.
I think Michigan really lacks some speed on defense.
It seems like basic fundamental football will always get you in the door. It just maybe so. Maybe
Well, I mean they'll win 9 ball games. They'll win 9 ball games playing basic football, but they got to start throwing the football a little bit to get that 10th and 11th win.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the phone call.
Thank you for calling.
I think the key with Michigan here is their defense. I got a little glimpse of that Illinois-Michigan game, and Illinois was just moving the ball on them by running little trap plays and then bouncing to the outside and throwing little out patterns to them. I think Michigan lacks a lot of speed with their linebackers and with their safety men. I just think they're too big. And, Jeff, I think you're right. They've fallen a little bit behind the times. They're in too much of this mold of Big Ten football where it's just power football up the middle. And with the hash marks coming in a little bit, there's a little bit more emphasis on speed. I don't think they're there yet, and some teams are taking advantage of it.
Okay. We have a phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
How you
Hello?
doing?
Are you there?
Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome the Braves to the Eastern Division, and also
appreciation to the Toronto Blue Jays for kicking butt to the Phillies. Little personal thing there. I'm from New York originally anyway, but we hate the Phillies as much as you guys hate the Phillies now. And, well, how you guys feel about being in the Eastern Division now with the most abusive fans in I think in baseball, like New York and Philly. They're very abusive.
I think first thing we have to do is hire some more security guards for our buses up in Philadelphia next year.
Yeah, maybe you guys could have spring training at a penal colony or something.
There you go.
But so, what do you think the Braves are going to go after somebody because Nixon's leaving? So, what do you think they're going to go after? We need somebody to piss off Deion Sanders or something like that. Somebody like Bip Roberts or, God forbid, Ricky Henderson. But maybe Clyde Drexler.
Clyde Drexler.
Clyde Drexler. I don't
Clyde the
know
Glide.
if he fit in center field out there.
Yeah. But what do you think? Do you think they'll go after somebody?
I think, Jeff, that basically what the Braves want to do is trim the payroll. I think they're very happy with some of the players that they have right now. If they're going to make any moves and try and acquire anyone, I think they're going to be young prospects, maybe pitchers, because they've traded some of one in the Fred McGriff deal, and then they've brought up several people. So I just really don't see them going out and acquire anyone, because if you do that, you have to pay out money, and that's just what they're trying to prevent from doing.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the Atlanta Hawks coming up their season?
I think they'll be 500 at best. I think that team would be very happy being 5 games over 500, but I really don't see it.
Yeah, well, all they had to do is average like I think 98 point a game, because they guaranteed 2.5 from Concac, right?
That's right, and one rebound.
That puts them over the 100 mark, right?
Yeah, just about, Well, I appreciate you guys, and I enjoy your show.
Thanks for the phone call.
Thanks for the call. Okay, still talking about college football. Let's talk about the Heisman Trophy. What are your Heisman picks?
Jeff, I'll let you go first on that.
Okay. Right now, I think I would have to pick Charlie Ward. Earlier this year, I would have stayed away from him. He's not your prototypical quarterback, but the guy's gotten in there, and he's performed outstanding. He's got Florida State #1, and I don't think they're going to be beat this year. He can throw the ball a little bit better than I thought he could, and, of course, you can't sack the guy. He dances around too much.
That's a good pick. I think Ward's going to win it, but I'm going to stay on the Tide bandwagon. I would vote for David Palmer. I think this guy can beat you so many ways. He returns kicks. He can play quarterback. He can play running back. He plays wide receiver. They let him throw passes. They let him run reverses. And the guy's just phenomenal. And the previous caller was right. I mean, if it weren't for David Palmer, Alabama would have 2 losses right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Jeff. Okay, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
My question is about the Winston Cup Championship coming up in Atlanta. We're talking about football championships and basketball championships and so forth, but who do you think's going to win it, Rusty or Dale?
Dale Earnhardt.
Ty, I'll defer to you. I don't know much about Winston.
I don't keep up with car racing that much either, but Dale Earnhardt always seems to be there at the end when it comes to the points championship. And this year, I wouldn't go with anyone else. I think he's a conservative but most reliable pick.
Well, what do you think about Toshiba putting up $1 million for the driver that can win the pole on Friday, win the race on Sunday, and win the Winston Cup champion? So you think Dale's going to win all that?
He could. I wouldn't put it past him.
Isn't it?
Okay. Thanks for
the
phone
call.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the Falcons. They're on their 2-game winning streak now. Do you think Deion's responsible for that?
I think Deion's responsible for a lot of it, but I don't think that's just the whole thing. I think there's 3 contributing things here. That's Deion Sanders, an improved running game, and this team is getting opportunities from their defense and their special teams now. And when you get big plays from your defense, it's a combination of being able to control the football with your running game, keep your defense off the field so they can come out and do some good things for you and help you win ball games instead of finding ways to lose ball games for you. So I think it's 3 things, Jeff.
Well, Deion is a big reason for the Falcons turning it around, but I think it's sort of a cop-out to just say, the Falcons are 2-0 under Deion Sanders. There's got to be some deeper reasons than that. I think the offensive line is finally starting to develop. You had some young kids on that line. They're starting to play some good football. Eric Pegram is evidently a pretty good running back. I thought he might have been a fluke a few weeks ago, but he keeps on doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, do you think this team can make it to the playoffs?
I think that's a little bit of a stretch. They've got some momentum. Realistically, they could have won 3 other ball games. They were 3 plays away from winning 3 games. They could have beat the Bears on that last touchdown pass to Rison that he dropped. If Hebert doesn't fumble against the Saints, then they kick that field goal, then we probably go to overtime with all of the momentum and maybe win that ball game. And, of course, the 49ers, just a high-scoring affair that we probably could have won.
Well, when I look at the schedule, you got 3 home games with San Francisco, Cleveland, and Dallas. Those are, and the Falcons cannot have no more than 2 or 3 losses to get into the playoffs. So my answer to that is no. I think this team will go 7-9 at best. And they also have a road game at Houston, and I think they're going to lose that game as well. And then they have to go out to Anaheim and play the Rams, and traditionally they play horrible against the Rams on the coast.
Okay. We have a phone call. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
I guess it's.
Hello?
Hello? You're on the
Hello?
air.
Hello?
Well, if you don't...
Caller, you're on the air.
Vanessa?
Oh, well.
Well, maybe he'll
Yes, we
call
lost
back
him.
and speak up next time, I guess. But
Jeff, I want to go back on something because going back to college football a little bit, I was just talking to some Alabama people today, and with Jay Barker being out, and you're going to see Bergdorf, the quarterback out of Cedartown, start for Alabama. And I was hearing that if he does not really play well or do what they want him to do, they said you could see Freddie Kitchens, a true freshman, come in and play for him. And they were going to redshirt him this year, but they may go ahead and bite the bullet and play him.
well, that would be a big surprise.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, I think we got a caller back. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Caller, you're on the air.
Am I on there?
Yes.
Hey, I've got a question. I heard Vanessa mention a little bit earlier about Tech having its Final Four games and perhaps being able to surprise us and even pull out a bowl. That's kind of optimistic because even if they win their Final Four games, they're only going to have 5 Division 1A wins.
Right.
At any rate, my question concerning what you said about Donnie Davis a little bit earlier, aren't you guys kind of comparing him a little bit unfairly when you consider that the kind of line that perhaps Zaire had protecting him and the kind of line that Schuler might have had protecting him? I mean, look at some of the guys that Tech has on the line protecting Davis now. They're all sophomores, maybe a junior here or there. But I think that's the kind of thing that makes the accomplishments of a Bell and a Dorsey Levens really spectacular.
Well, I think you're giving too much credit to the University of Georgia's offensive line if you think that they've been protecting Eric Zaire.
Yeah, I mean, I was there in Oxford for the Ole Miss game over there, and Zaire was in an upright prone position most of the night. He was getting blitzed and hit so much of the night that that offensive line is not that good, and not only that, they can't run block. So
I'm not talking this year. Obviously, Zaire spent a lot of time on the turf, but when he first came in, you were mentioning Schuler and Zaire in their first years. Do you think that Georgia's line and Tennessee's lines were as perhaps not as up to snuff as they were then?
Right. I think those the offensive clubs for Tennessee and Georgia all around probably were talented and a little bit deeper. I agree with that.
Okay, thanks
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thanks for the call. Okay, moving back to the NFL, who do you think the best team is now?
Right now, well, Jeff, at the beginning of the year, I picked San Francisco to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's going to happen because they need to establish their defense and being able to stop the run. But right now, the best team is in Big D. It's Dallas. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They got it together. They got it rolling.
And once they got Emmitt Smith back, it was pretty obvious that they had a mission to repeat, and then I think they probably will.
I agree. Okay, I guess that wraps it up for us. We'll see you next week, same time, Channel 12.